Hey everybody, C-Note here, and welcome to DOPEamine. My name is Christian Rivera, aka C-Note. I am at Let's Go C-Note on all the social channels. You can hit me up there. Feel free to message me. I am totally accessible about any of these topics and for coaching, so you can hit me up. There's also links below to all of the things to sign up for. Today on the YouTube channel, I wanted to talk about intellectual labor. I almost forgot it for a second. The idea of intellectual labor. I think some of you guys have maybe heard about emotional labor. That means if someone's experiencing something and they don't know how to express their emotions, or they don't know how to work through a problem, someone who's more maybe naturally attuned to emotional connections will typically help someone through that process. And they call that emotional labor. So for INTPs, sometimes that can manifest as intellectual labor, sometimes without even realizing it. I think many of us do realize it, but sometimes there are situations in which someone is trying to make us do intellectual labor for them. And this video is really about setting boundaries for that sort of thing, because it can be really tricky when you're trying to be helpful to people, especially early on, when you're trying to integrate a little bit of that FE into your life. You're trying to bring emotions into your life a little bit more. Sometimes you can find yourself being susceptible to helping people more than you want to. Maybe you were just kind of feeling bad about somebody's situation and you really want to give them all of your attention. But it's also important to recognize that this is not a natural strength for us to go through this sort of emotional situation, even if we're using our logic to help someone through this emotional situation. So when we are doing intellectual labor, that sometimes comes off in a situation where, yes, sometimes it can be emotional, but often it's like, you know, the typical story of like going to Thanksgiving dinner and your dad is like, I haven't been able to use the computer for 3 years. Can you fix it? And you have the right to say no. You know, that's basically what that means. So intellectual labor means that no one, just because you are intelligent, just because you have the ability to figure things out, or you're the person that is usually willing to push yourself for your own projects to make something happen, doesn't mean that someone else has access to that intellectual thinking that you are, you know, that you use in your life, that they don't have access to it. They don't always have access to it. It's up to you to protect that. I'm gonna try to reiterate that because I kind of went a little all over the place. But really the idea is intellectual labor is helping someone through a logical situation. And I'm sure you've experienced that a million times. But because introverted thinking, our dominant function, is something that is also unconscious for us, it's just something that we do, it can be very easy to just get attracted to the idea of wanting to fix like all of these situations that people are experiencing, like to fix people's problems. Not people problems, but like tech problems, or maybe there's like logical inconsistencies and people want to, you know, use your brain basically. They're like, hey, let me borrow your brain. And you're like, no, you can't borrow my brain. This is my brain. I'm working on stuff, you know? So it's okay to set those boundaries. It absolutely is, especially when it comes to like family and those situations, like I mentioned, where someone, you know, you show up and they're like, I don't know how to use my computer, or I don't know how to beat this video game. And it's like, well, that's your problem. It's totally okay. And I wanted to do this video because I know I've been kind of picking on INTPs lately, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. The idea is to help support INTPs to be able to push themselves a little bit, to get out of the stereotype, to get a little bit uncomfortable. But the problem is that other people are still going to have the stereotype of an INTP. So they're going to see you as the tech person, or they're going to see you as the person who's smart and logical, or the person who has all the recommendations for how to figure something out. And frankly, it is not up to you to be that solve for them. You can maybe give them a suggestion and, you know, give them a place to go to figure it out themselves, but essentially it is not your job to do it for them. I certainly encourage you to do that when you can. Like, helping people is like absolutely rewarding, even though like we're not as well versed in the emotional side of ourselves. It is still valuable to our energy to be able to help people on occasion. But if we're constantly doing that, that's going to be draining. So it's about protecting that energy that you have and making sure that you're not just being taken advantage of for your intellect, essentially. So intellectual labor is something where you do have the opportunity to protect yourself from other people taking advantage of that. So that's basically what it is. So I'll give you another example real quick. So I was at a recent Myers-Briggs event with some friends of mine. We were at Profiler training with Personality Hacker. I do their video content for the event. So full disclosure, they're a client of mine. And I had some friends there who I was going to lunch, and we just did a profiling session in the morning, and it's like one of those, it's a very TI heavy process. It's like trying to like figure out what's going on with someone, sort of logical deduction, trying to figure out this person's type. So after the session, we were starting to go to lunch. I went downstairs. I was going to go to lunch by myself because I needed some alone time. But I saw a group of people that I knew, and they kind of pulled me over, and they were like, "Hey, we need a TI person. We have some things we're trying to figure out." And so I kind of came over. I had a seat, and they started to ask me for help. But at the same time, instead of asking me for help, they were starting to just basically swat away any idea that I had. So they didn't want to get information from me. They wanted to debate with me. And frankly, at this stage in my life personally, I'm not interested in debating as much. I'm not necessarily trying to convince anyone of anything either. I'm trying to, if you have information and I need help, you need help, or you need some clarity on something, like, sure, I'll give you some information, but I'm not going to walk you through the steps to figure it out for yourself. Because every single human being needs to figure out a process on their own for themselves through using whatever cognitive functions that they have to figure stuff out, right? So I'm not going to belabor someone's thinking step by step by step by step to get them to where I am or to get them to where they need to be. That is not my job. That is not my process. And that's taxing of my energy, and I'm not interested, right? So that's important for us as INTPs to protect that energy. In that moment, I was already pretty weak emotionally, like it was a pretty emotionally heavy week, and I started to realize that this was happening, so I stopped everything because there was a lot of louder voices. They were starting to get a little bit animated about it. They were getting really excited. And these are good people. I love these people, but they were just, the energy was high and kind of frantic. And I had to stop everything. And I was like, look, I feel like what I'm saying, like no one's actually listening to anything that I'm saying right now. And if you want my help, I just want you to absorb what I'm saying and be able to consider it. But if you're going to swat it away, like I'm not here to convince you, and I'm not interested in convincing you. So either you're here to listen to what I have to say, or I'm going to leave this conversation, because that's not the point of me being here, right? So it takes a lot of work to get to that point of being consciously aware of like when your body is feeling strange and you're like feeling uncomfortable, and this feels like you're kind of spinning in circles, or the person's not listening to you, or they're not they're not taking in the information that you're sharing with them. Like it takes a little bit of experience and practice to get to the place where you start to realize that there's a threshold for that. And once you cross that threshold, you need to be able to take yourself out of that situation and put the boundary in place and say like, I'm sorry, I don't have the energy for that. I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I'm sorry, I don't, and be kind about it. You don't have to be rude and say like, I'm not going to do that. But like, find a way to be kind in these different situations. Listen to yourself in these situations. How are you feeling? How are you reacting? And do the best that you can to be kind about it. You might have to be persistent about it too. Some people are just going to be like, no, man, you're my kid. You should help me. It's like, sorry. I know this is frustrating, but this takes a lot of energy out of me. I'm not interested. I'm hoping you can figure it out, but like, this is not something I can do right now, right? So that's a challenge. I know it's really hard to find the words, but I think language is really important for INTPs. So there's a INTP intentions video that I think could be really helpful for that. And finding the words to just kind of be kind about it, but be stern about your boundary and saying like, I'm not interested in doing intellectual labor for this process. You have to figure it out yourself. And conversely, it's not our job as INTPs to change someone else's thinking, to change the system, to change or to guide someone to that logical outcome, because essentially that's going to cost us more energy, time, and emotional interchange than we have to give. You know, if we learn to let go of those things more often, we can kind of stay at peace more often and not worry about other people's things. We can focus on our own projects. We can focus on, you know, solving bigger picture problems instead of solving all of the little things that don't really matter at the end of the day. So look for situations in which you're starting to ruminate and go in circles. Look for situations in which your body is reacting and feeling uncomfortable. And in those situations where someone is not necessarily listening to the words that you're saying and they're trying to debate you or convince you, those are not situations you need to be in. That's not even like INTP specific, honestly. If you're getting into any of those situations, that is your cue to find a way out of it, and be kind about it. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to start an argument. All you have to say is, look, I'm sorry guys, I got somewhere else I gotta be. I hope you guys figure it out. Good luck, you know, or literally get out of the situation, or absolve yourself of that perceived responsibility by saying, I'm sorry you haven't figured it out. Maybe you need to get a new computer. Or here's a YouTube video. I don't know. You know, there's ways. There's the internet. There's Google. I don't know. There's Gary Vee always says that when someone asks him a question about like, how do you start a business? He's like, I'm going to take you to a website that is going to help you figure it out, and write this down because I'm going to spell it out for you. GOOGLE. Go there and all the information in the world you will find. So sometimes it's perfectly valid to point someone to Google and say, here, you figure it out. I'm not interested, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the energy. Sorry about that. And that's all. It's about setting boundaries. So that's it. Like I said, everything was at the top of the video at Let's Go C-Note if you want to connect with me, if you want to talk about coaching or any kind of help with that. There's also email signups for like podcast updates and video updates and special offers and all of that stuff. And also the Cosmic Calibration program is sort of this expression of my own personal journey, as well as a way, it's sort of like a personal development coaching program of sorts. So go ahead, sign up for that below, bit.ly/cosmic calibration, all lowercase, if that's something you're interested in. You can also leave me a comment. And if you have any questions, I do check all the comments. I do see everything. Even if you're being a jerk, I will respond. And, you know, I know it's a process to learn things. This is not about me telling you or trying to convince you how to be or what to do. But if this works for you, great. If it's not, there's a lot of other YouTube videos. That's cool. I'm not doing emotional or intellectual labor for you. You got to figure out your life. That's my job as a coach. I'm not here to do it for you. I'm here to encourage you, to coach you, and then you got to figure it out for yourself. So that's it. I appreciate you guys. I have been C-Note. Thank you for watching DOPEamine, and you can go check out the podcast at dopeamine.life or anchor.fm/DOPEamine, where I talk about more mental health, ADHD, and other things as well, not just INTP specific stuff. So I appreciate you guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll catch you next time on DOPEamine. See ya.